Hello and welcome everybody. It is Monday night at 7:30, which means it is time for another episode of 407 and Beyond Live. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Whether you are joining us live or watching at a more convenient time for you, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you joining in on the conversation, and we look forward to seeing you again next Monday night at 7:30 for another live show. And remember, please, right now, share us on your Facebook page because the more Disney and Universal fans that join us, the merrier. So please share us on your page and tag any friends or family who might be interested in the show or joining or asking their questions. On tonight's show, we talk with new 407 and Beyond vacation planner Alex Werber about her recent family vacation at Walt Disney World and what it's like taking young ones to the parks. But before I introduce Alex, the live show is sponsored by 407 and Beyond Vacation Company, Disney and Universal experts who help plan your family's perfect vacation. So all you have to do is show up, have fun, and create family memories. As always, our services are free to you. Visit us on the web at www.407vacations.com. And now with, and before I introduce Alex, catch us later on this week on the 407 and Beyond podcast, where I talk with one of our contributors, Val Inslee, about her recent staycation at Pop Century Resort. So make sure that you check us back out on Facebook and YouTube for that podcast episode. So now that is all taken care of, I am happy to announce that Alex Warber is our new 407 and Beyond vacation planner, and she is joining us on tonight's show to take your questions and to meet everybody. So without further ado, Alex, thanks a lot for joining the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
It's on behalf of 407 and Beyond and everybody else in the chat box. Welcome to the team, and we look forward to having you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be a part of the team.
So, so you recently, actually, before I ask you about your trip, let me ask you when you first became a Disney fan. When did going to the parks, really start meaning something from you? And do you have any kind of favorite memories about being in the parks that you could share?
It's funny. In 1992 was when I kind of became a fan. I was only 4 years old, and I vaguely remember bits and pieces like Hurricane Andrew, because that was going on at the time. But the one thing I do remember, it was hot, and my mom and I were waiting in line for Dumbo, and that was my first ride. And I think that my favorite vacation memory was on my most recent trip, because I brought my 2-year-old daughter, and just watching her eyes light up walking down Main Street, and then also having Dumbo be her first ride. It was an unforgettable experience.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think, now I'll have to ask my sister-in-law this, but I think that was also my niece's first attraction was Dumbo. So there must be something with Dumbo and it being first attractions. So, but I'll have to ask her to make sure about that. So, let me ask you, what are you most looking forward to about being a vacation planner?
I would have to say my passion and love for Disney is so great that this has always been something that I've wanted to do. Also a teacher, and so I thought, I would love to do this, and it's not about anything except for just sharing and spreading my love and passion for Disney. So that's what kind of made me want to go down this route as well.
Sure. Well, I think that your previous Disney experience and taking your family there will be a great asset to helping our clients and other families book and plan their Disney or Universal vacation. So since we're talking about that, let's just get to it and talk about your recent stay at Walt Disney World. So you were there about a week and a half ago?
Yeah, August 1st to August 11th,
Okay.
and we stayed 10 nights at Caribbean Beach.
Okay. And did you originally book Caribbean Beach, or were you one of those, one of those guests who had a reservation somewhere else and then were moved to another resort?
We originally were scheduled in March, and we were supposed to stay at All Star Sports. And what happened was we were driving from North Carolina. We had the car all packed up, and that night they announced that they were closing. So the day that we were checking in was the day that they actually closed. So we rescheduled for June, the first week of June. And then that got canceled. And then when we found out they were opening mid-July, we were excited that our August trip was happening. And we got moved because All Star Sports was closed. We got moved to Pop Century.
Okay.
And the week before we were checking in, my husband and I just called to see what would be the upgrade price to go to Caribbean Beach, and it was a good deal, so we took it, and we were happy that we made the choice to switch.
So, was that your first time at Caribbean Beach? Had you stayed there before? And how was your stay?
That was not my first time. I've stayed at Caribbean Beach many times with my parents growing up. It was like our go-to resort. I've stayed at Value, Moderate, and Deluxe, but I really like Caribbean Beach. I'm really glad that we stayed. I was pretty happy with everything going on with the COVID experience. Caribbean Beach did an excellent job. And so I'm glad that we made the switch. And I actually told my husband, the past couple of years with our family, we were staying at Value Resorts. But now I think in the future, we're going to just be staying at Moderate and Deluxe.
Oh, right. So, yeah, I mean, there is obviously difference between the three categories. In fact, Lydia and I have some articles that are up on our travel blog this week about the differences between value, moderate, and deluxe. And of course, there are pros to staying at either of those categories. But you can certainly tell a difference. And if it's built into the budget, and you are looking to spend more time at the resort, certainly going in the direction of moderate or deluxe, is kind of the right direction to go. So, what about Caribbean Beach did you like? Those rooms are newly renovated. The dining is newly renovated. You and I had discussed maybe some misses with the dining experience. So let me ask first, what did you like about Caribbean Beach, and then what were your misses overall?
So we had some breakfast reservations at Topolino's at the Riviera, and the main reason that we looked into the switch was because I heard about a walkway over to the Riviera. So that was a draw. Even though we were driving, the Skyliner wasn't going to be moving at that early of a time for breakfast, and we just didn't want to have to worry about our car. So that was the first draw, but then the Skyliner was huge. We all love the Skyliner. It was easy to just wheel a stroller right on it and not have to fold it up to go on a bus. And then the pool. The pool was a draw at Caribbean Beach, and just the ease of access to all of the parks.
Right. And so, actually, before we talk about the pool and the Skyliner and everything, Rachel is in the comment section. Let me pull her here I don't know, for whatever reason, it's super dark. But Rachel says hi. So Rachel is a regular viewer. So hello, Rachel. Thanks for joining us. It's good to have you. Rachel, if you have any questions for Alex, please make sure to put them in the comment box, and I will get them over to Alex right away. Lydia says, Casey and I are staying at the Swan soon. I wonder how it will be since it's also a Marriott. Yes, the Swan and Dolphin are Marriott hotels, actually with slightly different owners. But I think, Lydia, that you guys are absolutely going to enjoy staying at the Swan and Dolphin. I was there just about a year and a half ago. Maybe it was just a half a year ago. I don't know. Trips blend together. But we had a good experience, so I think you will as well. So, Rachel, thanks for joining. Lydia and Casey, thanks for joining. Casey says, so excited to see Alex on the show, and so glad that 407 and Beyond is growing. Yes, Casey, couldn't have said it better myself, but thanks for that comment. Lydia says, the Skyliner seems really super nice and social distancing. So, Alex, tell me, I know you said you had used the Skyliner and it was a huge plus for staying at Caribbean Beach, but what was like the logistics of getting on? Were they only doing one party per gondola, or what was did you notice them cleaning them at all? What was your
I didn't
experience?
notice them cleaning much, but then again, we got right on, got to the park. We didn't come back to the resort at all, so we didn't travel much there. Um, it was one family per gondola,
Okay.
and the Caribbean Beach is the main hub. So if you're coming from Pop Century or Art of Animation to go to Epcot or Hollywood Studios, you have to get off at Caribbean Beach and then get onto the transfer for Hollywood Studios or Epcot. Um, if you're staying at Caribbean Beach, you can just get right on and go to Hollywood Studios, or get right on and go to Epcot. There's no transfer of gondolas. If you're at the Riviera, you have to transfer to go to Hollywood Studios. You don't have to transfer for Epcot. So that's another plus is we had some breakfast over at Topolino's at Riviera, just like I said, and one day we were going right to Epcot, so that worked. But if you're going to Hollywood Studios, you would still have to get off and transfer gondolas.
So Alex, you have a little one who you're taking. What was it? Your little one's first time? Remind me. Her
Yes.
first time, and she's 2, right? And
Yeah.
how was her reaction or experience with the Skyliner? Was she excited? Was she a little tentative? How was it with a young one on the gondolas?
She loved it. The first time she was like, you could tell a little apprehensive, like, what am I getting on? And she was in her stroller. So she was strapped in. And even if she wasn't strapped in, I would still feel safe. It was good. But it's clear all around. So you can see the views. The views are outstanding. She would start to say, like, ride Skyliner. She looked forward to it. So that was really good. And on the gondolas, certain ones have Mickey and Minnie. They had the Seven Dwarfs. So when she saw her friends go by on the gondolas, she really enjoyed that. I will say one of the downfalls to the gondolas and the Skyliner is that if you're at the park and it storms, they shut them down. So you have to go to the front of the park and get a bus on your way back, which is kind of different, but we got spoiled with the Skyliner.
So actually, Alex, I have 2 questions from listeners. So I'm just going to leave you up there and bring up the comments. The first one is Lydia. You know what? Let me see real quick if I can make this white font because it is terribly difficult to see. Doing some in-show editing, so that'll definitely come across well. So Alex, Lydia says, was it busy at Caribbean Beach or did it seem empty? Lydia was at the Grand Floridian for dinner a couple weeks ago, and she says it was a ghost town. So how busy was Caribbean Beach? Yeah, how busy was it?
So we were there for 10, 11 days, and the first, I would say 6 or 7, it was a ghost town. Like walking to the pool, we were at Barbados, so walking to the pool from Barbados, we didn't see anybody. Once you got to the pool, you saw some other human beings there, but they all maintained social distance. I would say the last weekend, we ended on a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and even then, even that Monday got a little more crowded. Now we went after the parks. However, there was one day that I went in the morning with my daughter, and we went at like 11, and we were at a point the only person in the pool.
Okay.
So earlier in the day, it was empty.
So overall, the pool was pretty light.
Yes, and
Okay.
same with the resort. I would go into Centertown Market to do some pin trading on the board, and we would get lunch or dinner. And even then, there weren't many people walking by. Banana Cabana, the bar there was a little more packed, but we
Okay.
didn't.
So actually, another question is from Rachel. She says, Alex, I know you said you upgraded your resort to the Caribbean Beach. I have always decided to stay at value resorts. Do you think that I should splurge once?
So
And
my aunt,
before you answer that, Alex, I will say, Rachel, if you are looking for a very enthusiastic vacation planner, you might just want to reach out to Alex at alex@407vacations.com as your email, or check out her profile on our website. So, Alex, I had to do that shameless plug. But Rachel, if you are looking to have a vacation planner, I think Alex would definitely be able to help you out with that one. But Alex, I'll let you answer the question.
to answer your question, I went back and forth for a while, and then I just pulled the plug and called. And we always stayed at value resorts because we are never in the room. We figure we're there with extra morning hours on a normal time, and then we're there at extra evening hours. With traveling with our daughter and then not having access to the extra early and night hours, and then wanting to take advantage of the pool, it was worth it for us. And so, in my honest opinion, I would say splurge. This trip, literally, we've been waiting to go on since early 2020, when we booked it. And so we were just like, and it actually wasn't that much more, and we stayed 10 nights. So it was well worth it for us.
Yeah, it sounds like it, Rachel. I will say that actually, funny enough, the article I just wrote, a couple of them on our travel blog on our website. I talk about the benefits of the value resorts, especially as it pertains to the swimming pools, and the moderate and deluxe resorts definitely have. These incredibly immersive and fun swimming pools, and so you can check that article out there on the blog. But what I will say is, when it comes to deciding between value, moderate, and deluxe, obviously you got to pick the one that's best for your family and the one that fits your budget, because that's incredibly important. But if you have room for it in your budget, when you get to the moderate and deluxe style resorts, you definitely kind of open up the availability of spending time at the resorts, and especially with park hours closing in, opening up a little bit later and closing a little bit earlier at 6 or 7 in the afternoon and evening. Spending time at the resorts becomes a little bit more prevalent, and so if you're going to splurge on a resort, 2021 might be the time to do that. So, all right. So Casey says the gondolas at the Skyliner sound amazing. I've never been on it. Casey, in a week and a half, you will be, because I'll be down and I'll make sure that you get on. Rachel says, Alex, thank you. I'm cheap. In September 2021, we are booked for Art of Animation. That is very exciting. Art of Animation is a great resort, and you're definitely gonna have a lot of fun. Disney's not even offering vacation packages right now past September 2021 because of the big 50th celebration. So Rachel, you have one of the last reservations that are available in terms of the calendar year. So we're looking forward to you going. So you said the pool was pretty light. You said you ate dinner or lunch a couple of times at the resort. You may not have had the best of experiences there. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your dining experience at Caribbean Beach?
So I've stayed at Caribbean Beach in the past, and Centertown Market has always been great. And I figured with the renovation back in, I believe it was 2015, we figured it would be a little bit more of a better experience. But I think because of COVID and with limited capacity for the hotels and resorts, we noticed that they didn't have a lot of variety of food. So it was chicken fingers, a burger, a wrap. And so with the parks closing earlier, you're going back and you're having dinner there a couple times. It gets repetitive. So we took advantage of eating in the parks when we could.
Right. And you had told me that, or excuse me, you had said earlier that you ate at Topolino's Terrace. Did you eat there multiple times? And if so, was it breakfast and 4 times at Topolino's Terrace?
Yes.
So did you do a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I hope? Or how did you pick?
We did all breakfast. We had 2 days at Epcot, 2 days at Hollywood Studios. My husband joined me and my daughter on 2 of those, but 2 of those days he wanted to go over and get his Rise of Resistance boarding
Of
group, and
course.
so we had a little girl time at Topolino's. I wanted to eat there a lot because I heard great things. I saw great pictures. And it was one of the two modified character dining open. So I wanted to just start my daughter's day with seeing some characters before we got to the park, especially since there's no meet and greets and autograph signings and all that.
Now, do you remember the price per person for the breakfast? Because it is one price, right? Or can you order plates?
It is one price, but they keep bringing you multiple entrees if you ask your server, and they are compliant. Which every time we were there, they were. Now my daughter's under 3, so she was free, but I believe 3 to 12 was $27.
Okay.
But for adults, it was 42. So at first I thought, that's a little pricey, but it was well worth the experience. And then my daughter got to eat for free on Mickey's dime while we were there.
Okay. And so you feel that the $40 price point for adults, that was worth the food, the service, the ambiance of Topolino's Terrace?
Yes, and I actually am going to go above and beyond and say that even during normal times, it was better than Chef Mickey's.
Okay. Well, in my opinion, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Chef Mickey's, but that I know that is such a popular spot for guests to go there at the Contemporary for breakfast and dinner. So that's high praise for Topolino's Terrace. So I'm glad you had a good experience there. For time's sake, let's start getting into the parks a little bit and your experience in the parks. So you also ate at Be Our Guest, which is, I would say, other than Cinderella's royal table inside the castle at the Magic Kingdom, is the most highly coveted dining reservations that our clients and guests ask for. You ate there with your daughter. What was the experience like with her? And then what was your experience eating at Be Our Guest as an adult?
So this is my second time eating at Be Our Guest. With my daughter, it was a little difficult because we were put in the West Wing, and I love the West Wing, but she didn't really like it. She was a little scared. So that was kind of an off-putting experience. It was my husband's birthday, so I wanted to do something exciting for him. He really enjoyed it. We had filet mignon. The food was excellent. But I don't know that I would do it again. We did it for dinner, and I believe that one was $60 a person or $62 a person. And so it was a little pricey, and the experience wasn't fabulous.
And again, Be Our Guest is a fixed dinner, right?
Correct. So we had appetizer, which I had lobster bisque, and that was very good.
Okay.
Filet mignon, and then the desserts were just okay, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, that's kind of a bummer that you you go to dinner and you have good dinner and then dessert is average. But
especially Magic Kingdom when they have so many good treats and the confectionery and Be Our Guest was just okay.
Right. So what would you say though in terms of the environment at Be Our Guest? I find it to be one of the most immersive dining experiences that you can have. I love it inside. Now the food might be another thing, but just in terms of the environment, what are your thoughts on Be Our Guest?
My husband's never eaten there before, and so the main reason I wanted to go is for the ambiance and just the environment. I'm a big environment person. I love like rainforest. I love places that immerse me in it. So for that, it was worth it. He really enjoyed it, and again, it was his birthday dinner, so that's all I was happy with.
So
Yeah.
So Alex, Rachel writes in, the gray stuff wasn't delicious. So did you try the gray stuff?
We did, and that was the part that we did like. My daughter did like, but they had like a little macaroon thing that was just okay. The gray stuff.
I have heard a lot of mixed reviews on the gray stuff, so that's not surprising. Lydia says, I've never been inside Be Our Guest. I want to go so bad. The West Wing, sounds awesome. I think it is. It sounds like you think it is. You think it is as well. Let's see. Casey says, how are the wings different? Casey, do you mean like the different areas of Be Our Guest? And if he does mean that, Alex, describe the rooms inside Be Our Guest restaurant.
So at the entrance, the first room is the ballroom, and it looks very extravagant, very elegant. It's nice in there. For me, it's also the biggest. So, and they're still social distancing the tables well. That was great, but it was okay. Like the ballroom is okay. It's a nice experience. The other room is the library or the study, and that one is a smaller room. I have been in there. They let you walk through and kind of see the different rooms. That one again is okay, but the West Wing is really neat, and I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it does have some extra magic in there that just makes it a lot more fun.
Right. I totally agree. Let's move on from Be Our Guest. Let's talk about your experience in the parks as a whole. So you visited all 4 parks. Of course, you were there 10 plus days. What were the crowd levels? How would you categorize the crowd levels for your entire stay? Were there any points of your 10 days in the parks that you were concerned? Did you feel like you had enough room to walk around and maintain physical distancing or standing with other guests inside queues waiting for attractions? So talk about the experience with other guests in the park and the crowd levels overall.
The first day we were there, we went to Magic Kingdom, and a hurricane was there at the same time. So We literally walked onto all the rides, finished by noon, maybe 1 o'clock, got some lunch, and then went and revisited more rides. So the first couple days, it was empty. Magic Kingdom was empty. Animal Kingdom was empty. Epcot was empty. As we progressed throughout the week, we went to Hollywood Studios on a Thursday and a Saturday, which, in my opinion, was not great planning on my part. And that was the most packed. But when I say packed, it wasn't like your normal crowd levels, obviously. But because it was a weekend, I feel like that weekend, the 8th, 9th, and 10th was when I was there. That last weekend was a little bit busier. And I would say in Magic Kingdom, everything was spread out. But that narrow area between Peter Pan and Small World and Fantasyland, that area got a little too crowded once in a while.
So overall though, you felt like you could move about the park,
Oh, for
and
sure.
stay pretty well distanced. I had a very similar experience when I was there a couple weeks ago, and we will be back in the parks again next week, not this week, but next week. So if you want to watch some live footage of the parks and some vlogs and some photos, make sure you stay tuned next week to our Facebook page and our YouTube page. We'll definitely be going out live from the parks. And taking you guys around the boardwalk, around Epcot, and all the other different parks. So make sure you tune in next week for that. So with my experience was, Alex, that with kind of the low crowds came very short waits for attractions. I assume that was the same for you.
Yes. Such short waits that like I would walk on Soarin' 3 and 4 times in a row. My daughter loved Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. We walked onto that a couple times. What we've noticed was if they were posted 15, 20 minutes, it was more like 5 or 10. So I think they just kind of posted a little bit more just to give them some leeway. But
Yeah.
the longest we waited was 20 minutes, and that was for Small World because they were cleaning. So
Which is a
that
good
was
reason to wait, right?
right, right.
Right. If you're gonna wait and it's because they're cleaning it, that's kind of like one of those good problems to have.
And I would recommend if you are interested in Minnie and Mickey Runaway Railway, even though Hollywood Studios is opening at 10 right now, we got there at 9:30 and got in line, rode it before 10 o'clock. So
Nice.
that was an option for us too.
And just real quick, 30 seconds, your review of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad. Railway. Oh my gosh. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. What's your 30-second review on it?
It was cute. It was worth riding. We rode it 2 or 3 times. Each time that you ride it is different. It was a different kind of ride, like different elements of it that you never saw before on a ride, and so we really enjoyed it. Now, I did like Great Movie Ride, so I did kind of miss that being there. But Minnie and Mickey Runaway Railway was a plus in my book.
So,
A plus. I like it.
So definitely, in your eyes, a good addition to Hollywood Studios.
Correct.
And in fact, Lydia just says in the comments, Hollywood Studios just has so much cool stuff to offer right now. I can't wait to get over there soon. Yeah, Hollywood Studios went from like not even a half-day park, but like a quarter-day park to a park where everybody is. My experience, and Alex, yours might be the same, but it was the busiest of the 4 parks when I was there. And I think that is strictly attributed to 2 things: one, Galaxy's Edge, and two, Toy Story Land. And now they have the new attraction, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. They couldn't have made that any more difficult to say. But now Hollywood Studios seems to be the park for teenagers and thrills, and probably the most popular Disney park like right now, when it comes to making park pass reservations. So, all right. So I have to ask you, what did you notice in terms of mask compliance with other guests? Did you feel that all guests were respectful of the mask policy, that anybody to or order wear a mask? Did you notice any folks or guests who did not wear a mask? Did you notice Disney employees talking with guests that didn't have a mask? That's a lot of mask questions, Alex. I'll let you digest that. But what was your overall sense of mask compliance while you were there?
I was pleasantly surprised. A lot of people were wearing masks. Employees were walking around cleaning. enforcing the mask wearing. In the beginning of our stay, we didn't hear this, but towards the end, over the loudspeaker where they play all the Disney music, they started enforcing make sure that you're wearing your mask. I think it got to be a problem. A lot of people were taking selfies or pictures with taking down their masks in front of the castle or any other iconic elements in the park. And so, if there were photo pass people around, they would quickly tell them, you got to put your mask back on, even for pictures. So, I was pleasantly surprised. I felt safe when I was there. Now, in regards to my 2-year-old wearing a mask, that's a different story. We struggled a bit with her wearing it.
But to be fair, your daughter's under 2, so you didn't have to have her wear a mask, but you chose to try anyways, which I think everybody can appreciate, that you tried it. But I imagine getting a mask on a 2-year-old in a park when it's hot is difficult.
Correct. And she was in her stroller most of the time, drinking or eating. They are saying, I guess, when the parks first opened in July, they had people or problems with people walking around and eating and drinking. And so they are making sure that if you are eating or drinking, you are stationary and you pull over to a spot, and you eat or drink while you are not moving. And then you pull up your mask and then you're on your merry way.
Yeah, I actually found that new policy change very helpful when I was in the parks because I never felt like I was getting blindsided by somebody walking near me that didn't have a mask on. Like I knew that if they were stationary, they might have their mask off, so I could actively avoid them. So I found it to be helpful. Did you find it to be helpful, or wasn't even noticeable?
I don't even think it was noticeable. Most of the people that were there were just happy to be there and were compliant with their masks on.
Right. That's definitely good to hear. So let me ask you, Alex, what advice would you give to a young family traveling with kids who may be under that 2-year-old threshold who aren't going to wear a mask or don't have to wear a mask, I should say, but they might have 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds who masks are a new thing. But as we all know, there are no exceptions at Disney right now, and we all appreciate that as guests. But what's your advice for families coming with young kids about practicing wearing a mask or just getting acquainted with having it on, especially out in the Florida heat?
I would definitely practice prior to going. We got on Etsy for very cheap little Mickey and Minnie ear savers that go behind the head, so they don't have to wear them around the ear, and it goes behind their head, kind of like a headband around, which we found helpful because she could just pull it right off her ears, but it was kind of more constricted to her face that way. Especially if you're going sometime in August, September, October, definitely bring a fan, cooling towels. We had water bottles that were also mist bottles, that I got off of Amazon, which were a lifesaver. We got 2 for about $15, and they were a huge deal for us. Whenever we got hot or we were standing in line, we would just spray our faces a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Casey says ear savers are the best. I haven't had them, but I've heard they're great. Have you used ear savers before?
I don't have them for myself. However, I should have got them because the Shop Disney and the Disney face masks were a little tight on my ears, but my daughter wears them pretty efficiently. So
That's good. That's good. So, um, anything else about the parks? I do want to ask you, did you go to Disney Springs? If so, what was your experience like Disney Springs? I've heard it can get busy over there, but kind of the crowd levels ebb and flow. So, did you guys go to Disney Springs? And if so, what was your experience over there?
we went to Disney Springs the day we got there. We have about an 8-hour drive, so we left at 8 in the morning, and then we got into Disney Springs around noon. And we just stayed there for a couple hours. I was hoping to spend, the whole day there, but unfortunately there wasn't much open. I did do some pin trading, or pin buying. Sorry, there were no boards at Disney Springs, but we did have lunch. We had dinner reservations, but we moved them to lunch at the boathouse. And if I can make one recommendation, and you are going to Disney Springs, get the lobster roll at the boathouse if you like lobster, because it was the best thing I've ever eaten.
I have to say, all of our clients and guests that I've talked to, and even our team members, if you're going to eat at Disney Springs, I think the Boathouse is everybody's number one choice. And I've never heard anybody be disappointed about their meal at the Boathouse.
It was excellent. And we were on the fence because my daughter really likes dinosaurs, and I was thinking about T-Rex. But I've ate there before, and the food just wasn't great, and the lobster roll was calling my name. So
Yeah.
we made the right choice.
The boathouse has a good environment and ambiance. It has great food. It sits right there on the water. So I think all in all, it's really tough to beat the boathouse. Casey says that the lobster roll at the boathouse is definitely on his list. Lydia says that Disney Springs does not mess around with people who are not following the mask rules. She says that she saw a cast member chase a guest down and say in a very nice voice that they were required to wear a mask, which, as a fellow guest at Disney Springs or in the parks, I have to say that I appreciate. And I'm sure the cast members are trained on how to tell guests nicely that they need to put their masks on. So, Lydia does want to say that we do have an article on our travel blog about Hollywood Studios and kind of the top five things about Toy Story Land, which was actually written by Lydia, and I will say is a really good in-depth article about the top 5 things at Hollywood Studios. So, Alex, let me ask you, what is one or two of your favorite things about Toy Story Land over at Hollywood Studios?
Well, it would have been Woody's Lunchbox. I was really looking forward to it. It was closed, but Toy Story Mania is always a favorite of mine. Slinky Dog Dash. My daughter really loved Alien Swirling Saucers. She just met the height requirement on it, and we walked onto that literally 8 times in a row. And we found a lot of the times, if there was nobody else in line, they would just let us stay on, and it would just keep going around and around. So we spent about a good hour over on Alien Swirling Saucers.
I'm sure you and your husband were starting to have your fill of alien swirling saucers at some point.
And he gets motion sickness, so he couldn't go on it at all. I just had him take a lot of pictures.
That's funny. The music is really cool in there. It's kind of this techno Toy Story themed music. I do like the environment. I can see how 2 and 3-year-olds can just be on that ride consistently. But for me, I don't know how you did it. So kudos to you. Casey says, she must have a super strong stomach. Good for you too. Casey also suffers from motion sickness. So actually, we did a podcast, it was a long time ago, about kind of ways to go to Disney if you have motion sickness. Does your husband have any tricks that he does to get him kind of, prepared or recover after kind of a strong attraction?
He just can't do the spinning rides. But if they're a little bit slower, like Dumbo, he was able to do. He could not do Astro Orbiter, so he just chooses not to ride them. Now, lucky for him and my daughter, I am like a ride expert. I love all of them, and none of them make me sick. So I will ride all of them as many times as I can.
And your husband is a big Star Wars fan. He did get to ride on Rise of the Resistance. Remind me, did you get to ride it? And if not, what was his kind of synopsis? Did he get off the ride and he was just like talking to you about it? Because I know that after I got off, that's the only thing I could think about for the rest of the day.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to ride it because I am expecting my second child. So a good reason for not riding it. He rode it twice while we were there. He got boarding group 9 and boarding group 3 at the 10 o'clock time slots on the 2 different days you were there. If you get a boarding group at 10 o'clock, you cannot get a boarding group at 2. He loved it. He talked about it all day. He took many pictures. He said that he even liked it so much because it was so empty in there. When we were planning to go back in March, we just saw how crowded it was and how hard it was to get a boarding group. He logged on, and we were not on Disney's Wi-Fi. And I think it helped. He was just a party of one. So that's why he was able to get such early boarding groups, I think.
Yeah, Alex, I think you bring up a really important point. And those guests looking to get Rise of the Resistance boarding passes, you do have to do that on your My Disney Experience account, on your phone. And it's really there on the homepage of the app. It's hard to miss. But what I will say, what you had brought up about not being on the Wi-Fi, that's definitely one of the tips and tricks that I give our clients who are looking for a boarding pass is don't be on the Wi-Fi, even though it's nice that, it's complimentary, you're not using your own data, that it does get bogged down, particularly at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. as everybody else in the park is looking for boarding passes. So use your data and get your boarding pass. That's way more important than getting free Wi-Fi. So
And they do have tech people there under these blue umbrellas. I saw very decent long lines for people that were having tech issues getting a boarding group. So at 10 and 2, cast members were out there to help those people with tech issues.
yeah, that is nice. They do walk around like those iPads or whatever,
Yep.
and help people, which is nice. I've definitely used their help before. So we have a few people commenting. So let me get to them before we get too far along here. Rachel says, "Where do I find your podcast?" Sorry, I should know this by now. Rachel, don't worry about it. You can find our podcast. All of our podcasts are both in video and in audio form. So you can find all of our podcasts on our YouTube page at 407 and Beyond Vacation Company. You can also find some on our Facebook page. We also are on iTunes at Disney Co. in the Know podcast. We have done a little bit of rebranding, and that page with iTunes is being updated. But if you're definitely looking for the one about motion sickness, that is on our YouTube page under Conversations. Let's see. Oh, and people are answering that question in the chat. And Rachel says, I just started following you guys last week on YouTube. I need to find you all everywhere. Yes. So we are primarily on Facebook and YouTube. We do have an Instagram account at Disney Co. in the Know. Our handle is Disney in the Know. But our main page where you can get all of your Disney and Universal Vacation news, podcasts, videos, live in the park videos, or vlogs is going to be on our vacation page on Facebook at 407 and Beyond Vacation Company. So please share us on your page or tag your friends and family in it, because the more the merrier in our conversations on our Monday Night Live shows, but also spread the knowledge of what's going on at Disney parks, particularly right now with everything going on in the current environment. And, it helps 407 and Beyond grow to help other families plan their perfect vacation. So Alex, those are really all of the questions that I have for you. I want to give you the opportunity to, is there anything that I missed? Is there any other advice or tidbits or things that you experienced during your stay at Caribbean Beach and in the parks that might be helpful to those tuning in?
I did want to add that we ate at Coral Reef. And Coral Reef and Epcot has excellent food as well. We got shrimp and grits, and we were right next to, if you've never been in there, you're basically next to a big aquarium. We were the only people eating in there for about a half hour.
That's
and then
cool.
Family came. So it was quite empty in Epcot. If you have a trip coming up soon, try to ride Spaceship Earth before they close that down. Who knows when that will happen. And one more thing in regards to Epcot is they're doing a lot of construction over there.
Yeah. Tell us about the construction going on at Epcot.
They have basically the whole center of the front of the park closed for refurbishment. And so they're doing construction, which makes you walking around the front of the park very difficult. So if you are over at Soarin' and you want to try to run over to Mission Space, it's about a 15-minute walk rather than just cutting right through. So that was very difficult in the rain. Make sure you bring umbrellas, ponchos, and have everything prepared for that.
Right. And I do know that part of World Showcase, which, spoiler, is my favorite area on Disney property, is World Showcase. I know a lot of those shops and restaurants are temporarily closed. They're not having the college program or the international employees come over for that. So did you notice, was it particularly vacant in World Showcase? And if so, how was it kind of walking around by yourself?
World Showcase is also one of my favorite areas in the whole Disney World experience. And it was a different trip. We would usually spend a couple hours, maybe even a half day or a whole day over there. And we were excited about food and wine coming early. So we did hit up some spots over there, but a lot of the shops were closed. And it just felt eerily quiet. We came in from the Skyliner on the back entrance in France and just started walking around to Frozen Ever After in Norway. and we were the only people walking, and that was a few minutes prior to 11, which was the park time opening. We saw one cast member, and that was it, and we walked right on Frozen twice in a row, and that was a neat experience, but it did feel a little eerie on how empty it was.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely this fine balance between being really nice because you have the park to yourself, or you get right onto attractions and kind of feeling like, hey, where is everybody? It is definitely a unique experience. So it is a heck of a time to go right now. It is a modified vacation experience in some regards, but being able to walk on attractions like that is definitely a positive. So anything else, Alex, before we wrap up?
I would say if you're on the fence about going, because like Bruce said, it is a modified experience, no fireworks, no parades. It is worth going because most of the time we were so tired from just getting on so many rides that we wouldn't have even been able to stay up for fireworks anyway. And we were pleasantly surprised about how frequent the cavalcades, which are like the mini, like sometimes we would just see Tinkerbell come out, or sometimes we would see Goofy and Clarabelle or Mickey and Minnie. So if you're traveling with young ones, the cavalcades came out very frequently, and it was just like watching a parade, but not having to deal with the crowds or waiting there for hours to get a good spot.
Right.
So it was definitely worth it in my opinion. So if you're on the fence, I say go, and enjoy your time and make it memorable.
And if you are curious what the heck is a cavalcade, it is the new modified parade experience. As Alex said, we do have video of a couple of those on our Facebook and YouTube page. So you can definitely check those out there. So Alex, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. I will say, for those watching, Alex is a new vacation planner. She is getting ready to take on her own new clients. So she is an expert and definitely a value to our team. So Alex, thanks again for joining us tonight. And we look forward to having you back on the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I hope you guys learned a little bit from what I had to share about my experience. But thank you again for having me, and I look forward to joining in.
All right. Well, thanks everybody to watching this episode of the live show. We appreciate you joining us tonight. Let me get the right graphic up on the screen. So whether you are joining us live and commenting in the comment box or watching us at your own convenient time, we appreciate you joining us and joining in on the conversation. Make sure you join us again next Monday night at 7:30 for another live episode. I will release the event topic just later this week. So RSVP to the event or tune in when you can next Monday at 7:30 for another live show. And later this week for our Thursday podcast of 407 and Beyond podcast, we are talking to contributor Val Inslee about her staycation at Pop Century just a week ago. So if you know any friends or family who want to join the show and ask questions or comment in the box, or who may be looking to plan that Disney or Universal vacation but are on the fence, have them visit us at www.407vacations.com. We'll get them working with a vacation planner and start planning their family's perfect vacation. So folks, thanks again for watching. We appreciate you joining. Stay safe and have a good week. We'll talk to you later.